This is an AMI podcast.
Hurt people more skillfully. An expert heartbreaker knows the effect of each incision. The blade slips in, barely noticed, the pain and the apology delivered at the same time. You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review. Welcome back, where we talk all things audiobooks and get to know some interesting guests and their audiobook habits as well. That quote that you just heard is from a sentimental book for me. It's called Diary of an Oxygen Thief, and it's written by Anonymous, narrated by Anonymous on Audible. I'm Ramya Amuddin, host of AMI Audiobook Review, and joining me right now is Nazreen Abdelmajid. She's the audio technical producer of the show. Nazreen, it's kind of cool that this whole thing is narrated and written by Anonymous. Fascinating concept, first of all, when you have these kind of books. But the reason why I said it was sentimental is because this is the first book that my little brother had recommended to me. And the first time I checked it out, I didn't even check it out in audio. It was an ebook. We'd found it on some platform. I can't even remember the name of it right now. And then we read it together, not out loud, but like we were reading it at in and around the same time of each other. And it was like, I can't even fully remember if I loved the book or not, but I just loved sharing it with him. He's not really an avid audiobook listener, but he reads a lot. And he, when he recommended this to me saying that, hey, we're reading this book at school and I thought you might be interested because you love to read, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm down. We're going to share this. It's going to be so cool. And so Diary of an Oxygen Thief, when it came out on Audible in audio format, I was like, oh, I got to reread this, read it in audio. And it was still very, very cool. Fascinating, super short listen if you're curious about it. And I think it's very well written. That quote and other ones from the book really stand out. Niz, anything like that you just think, I love sharing this experience with somebody else?
At this point, I think it's not even about the book. It's just about the memory, and it's someone special that recommended you that book. It's like when somebody recommends a movie to me. I don't even care about the movie, but oh my God, thank you. Like, you never did this for me before. Or when my brother sends me good music, he never usually does that. But recently he's been sending me remixes, and he's like, you should do that and you'd go viral online. I'm like, I wouldn't, but I mean, that's pretty amazing. That's counts. Pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool that you think that I have that talent. It's really nice that
Absolutely.
You're taking effort to take interest in my interests. You know what I mean? So
that's it. Yeah, no, totally. It's that, when somebody, and we talk about recommendations like every week on this show, right? But when somebody kind of knows you or knows that this is something that you would like, and then they're like, I think you should check it out. To me, that's a very, very personal moment. It's a very nice way to kind of seal the bond. And like you said, it's sweet that people take interest in what you're interested in, or think of you when they think of a certain book or a piece of music in your example. So I wanted to share it with all of you. And if you want to check it out, the book is called Diary of an Oxygen Thief by Anonymous. That's easy to remember. Let's take a look at the CELA homepage. This is CELA at a glance, where you go to celalibrary.ca, and we give you kind of a sneak peek at the homepage, CELA library.ca. The featured titles for this month pretty much is Red X, a novel by David Demchuk, ghost and horror series. The Audacity by Catherine Ryan, which we talked about last week. It's a humor piece and also a memoir. The Dark Remains by Ian Rankin and William McIlvanney. So this is like mysteries and crime stories, and it's got a very unique twist to the writing aspect of it. So looking forward to talking a bit more about that. But Nazreen, we're going to get into what's trending because something real cool is taking off right now.
Yeah, so Audible tweeted out this week's top releases. So we're just going to start with that. The Dark Hours by Michael Connelly, Dark Tarot by Christine Feehan, The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, A Final Spin by Jocko Willink, So many more good releases this week, but there's one that really caught my eye. Will by Will Smith, 5 stars of goodness. It's
Is
not
five
part of
stars
the
of goodness
title.
part of the title?
No,
Okay.
no, no.
'Cause
The book
that
is
would be so
5 stars
accurate.
on Audible. So I'm like, it would be accurate. It should be part of the
Yeah.
title. I squeezed that in. But no, I'm saying it's 5 stars, and I'm not shocked at all that it's 5 stars on
Mm-mm.
Audible. Well deserved. He is a special man to me, very special. But here's the synopsis. So, one of the most dynamic and globally recognized entertainment forces of our time opens up fully about his life in a brave and inspiring book that traces his learning curve to a place where outer success, inner happiness, and human connection are aligned. Along the way, Will tells the story in full of one of the most amazing rides through the worlds of music and film that anyone has ever had. Will Smith's transformation from a West Philadelphia kid to one of the biggest rap stars of his era and then one of the biggest movie stars in Hollywood history is an epic tale, but it's only half the story. Will Smith thought with good reason that he had won at life. Not only was his own success unparalleled, his whole family was at the pinnacle of the entertainment world. Only they didn't see it that way. They felt more like star performers in his circus, a 7 days a week job they hadn't signed up for. It turned out Will Smith's education wasn't nearly over. This memoir is the product of a profound journey of self knowledge, a reckoning with all that your will can get you and all that it can leave behind. I'm gonna stop there, but it's
Whew.
such, yeah, that synopsis just took a turn for me. Again, I'm not surprised that this would be such a good book. He is such a hard-working guy. I mean, I followed his career ever since I was little, ever since Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I followed his career. This man is very passionate in what he's doing, and I think that's so inspiring. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you, these memoirs don't usually get me. I mean, like, they don't grab my attention much. If it's a book about a celebrity, it doesn't really catch my attention usually. But when Will Smith posted on Instagram of Oprah's reaction of his book, I got so excited. And she was telling him that it was the best memoir she's ever read. Can you believe?
What?
Can you
Coming from
imagine Oprah?
Oprah.
Can you imagine
Okay.
Oprah telling you this information? I would
That
go
seals the deal.
crazy.
We have to check it out.
That's it.
That's incredible.
I genuinely am so excited to hear this book. So, yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
literally anyone who's grown up with Fresh Prince, aka my generation. Like if you grew up with Fresh Prince, you and you loved it, okay, you're gonna check out this book, or at least enough of the reaction around the book to feel like you've
Mhm.
listened or read the book yourself, because it's so Will Smith. He is so charismatic,
Yeah.
and I can't imagine what the narration on this book would be like, and then also I can only imagine how incredible it would be. Thanks, Nis, for bringing that up. That's awesome.
You got it.
Looking forward to checking it out. You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review. I'm your host, Ramya Amudan, here with Nisreen Abdel Majid, and it's time for Pause or Play. No further explaining needed. If you've been following along with the show, this is one of my favorite features. Let's talk about The Dark Remains by Ian Rankin and William McIlvanney. And this is a mysteries and crime story, and we featured it as one of the featured titles from the Sela Library's website, selalibrary.ca. So let's find out what it's about and then decide whether we'd hit pause or play. In this scorching crime collaboration, best-selling author Ian Rankin and Scottish crime writing legend William McIlvanney join forces for the first ever case of D.I. Laidlaw, Glasgow's original gritty detective. Lawyer Bobby Carter did a lot of work for the wrong type of people. Now he's dead, and it was no accident. Besides a distraught family and a heap of powerful friends, Carter's left behind his share of enemies. So, who dealt the fatal blow? PC Jack, Laidlaw's reputation, recedes him. He's not a team player, but he's got a sixth sense for what's happening on the streets. His boss chucks the violence up to the usual rivalries, but is it that simple? As two Glasgow gangs go to war, Laidlaw needs to find out who caught Carter before the whole city explodes. In The Dark Remains, these two iconic authors bring to life the criminal world of 1970s Glasgow and Laidlaw's relentless quest for truth. Okay, we're pressing pause or play on this one. Nazreen, to you, would you press pause or play?
I love a good book that will get me asking a million questions. So this is probably one of those books. So I'm gonna say play.
Okay, slightly
Let's
hesitant,
play.
but yes,
Let's
play.
play. I feel like
Okay.
we'll give
Let's
it a
dig
try.
into the mystery. Okay. Debbie, pause or play on this one?
Oh, definitely play. I love me a good mystery. Definitely play.
Okay, perfect. There's no hesitation there. Oh, you know what? Because this book is all about Glasgow, and my dog Glasgow, aka Glizzy, knows that. He's now having a tantrum about it too. I would also press play on this. Sounds really interesting. The Dark Remains. So you heard her voice. Our guest for today's audiobook talk is Debbie Williams, and you are here to help us open up the space to review, discuss, recommend, browse, conceptualize, and reminisce on audiobooks. And Debbie, you know what I usually do around this time is proclaim people as avid audiobook listeners. You're an audiobook listener. You're an avid audiobook listener. But do that with you. I think it's time for us to introduce the finally fleshed out, brand spanking new listening scale on audiobook review. So not all of you know about this. In fact, none of you know about this because it's been a very big secret, but I'm so excited. So we're going to start
I love me a good
with the
mystery.
scale. Exactly. And we're going to start. This is a 2-part scale, okay? It's very, very creative, trust me. We're going to start with the even numbers from 0 to 10. 0 being anti-audiobookers, and those people are most likely not going to be on this show. Are you 2, tempted but... So there's definitely an appeal to listening to audiobooks, but I'm terrified. 4, a lazy listener. I could really listen more, but I'm too preoccupied on Netflix or enter other streaming service here. 6, pile 'em on. Toss me the recommendations and I will listen. 8, can't hear, I'm listening. No matter what I'm doing or where I'm going, earbuds are in and an audiobook is on. Or 10, beyond help and broke. It's too late to turn back now. I eat, sleep, and breathe audiobooks, and I'm not at all upset about it. Where do you fall in this scale, Debbie?
I'd say I'm about a 4. What was 4 again?
Yeah? I think 4 was the lazy listener.
Oh, no, sorry, 6.
6, pile 'em on. So toss me a recommendation and I will listen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Good. She's a recommender. So now we're going to move on to the odd numbers and we're going to narrow down your listening habits. Okay. See, this is a very intense process. So this is the pickiness listening scale from 1 to 9. And like I said, the odd numbers. Which of the following statements best describes you? 1, the sleeper. I really want to listen, but fall asleep doing it. 3, the self-helper. I listen to audiobooks exclusively for self-help reasons. 5, the verifier. If it's hot on the market, I'll probably listen. 7, speed racer. 1.5x plus is the only way to take in audiobooks. Or 9, the humanitarian. Human narrated books only, please.
Oh, definitely 9.
Okay, so none of the synthetic audio for you.
No, I don't think I could do a whole book, with I don't, mind you, I don't know. I've never really tried, so I shouldn't really say, but if I'm listening to something with, voiceover or whatever, I don't know that I can do a whole story that way because sometimes the narrator makes the book, right? Some narrators they really get you into the story. And then when you're done, you're like, oh, I wanted more. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the the narrator, the speed of the narrator, the story, everything is a package, right? So I would say that I'm a 9. But however, I do tend to fall asleep when I listen at night. So maybe I'm a bit of a 9 and a 1.
A 9 and a 1. You're on all over the place on the scale. No, but it's totally true. A narrator really makes the book. And, like there's searching by author, searching by titles, and on Audible, not sure about other platforms, but on Audible, you can also search by narrator, right? Which is so helpful if you're just absolutely in love with the way a person performed a book.
Yes, that's right. That's cool.
So how long have you been listening to audiobooks? Was there a phase in your life when you were reading print?
Actually, I started reading audiobooks probably about 20 years ago when I was commuting. When I was taking the train from Oakville to Toronto. So then I really started to get into the audiobooks. It was a lot easier than reading print. Back in the day, it was the 4-track cassette. Ooh, I'm dating myself. I still do, not as much now, but I still continue to read print because my advice is always, if you can still read print, try to do it because it's good for me anyways. It's good for spelling. I mean, there are certain names of places and names of characters. And a perfect example was I read The Golden Compass and one of the characters' name was Pantaleon. And I never seen that in print. And when somebody wrote it and I went, oh, that's how you spell that, right? So sometimes I think it's really good that if you're still able to read print, get out that magnifier, get out that CCTV, even if it takes you 6 months. It's just a good, or your iPad. I use my iPad and I read, then I can make it bigger. So I use the iBooks app, or I use Kindle, or even Overdrive, anything so that you can still continue to see, names of people, names of streets, names of cities. Sometimes you'd be like, I don't know I've never seen what that's spelt like, right? So,
because there's so much more to a book than just the story, right? There's so much learning. You're talking about the geography, the communities, everything else, the settings, and absolutely, spelling is a huge part of reading visually. Like, luckily now, though, there are a lot of different options for us. Even if you are ebook reading, you can probably go in and figure out the way that the words are spelled if you're using a screen reader. And what I like to do is pause a book if a word really stood out for me, and then ask my smart device like Google or Amazon Echo, how to spell the word. Because then you're still getting some level of, oh, okay, interesting.
That's a good point, actually, because I don't tend to do that. I tend to read books and then I just get into them. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, what does that mean? But then I just move on because I get so into the story.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a really good point. I think that there are people who are super comfortable pausing a lot during books. Amir Khan, you know who you are. But there's a flow, right? And sometimes you don't want to feel interrupted by the flow. And of course, if you're listening, you don't have the visual flow to just kind of be able to pick up spelling, pick up different quirks and words and accents and dialects just because you see the way that they're supposed to be written. Of course, though, you get the performance of it, right? You're not being distracted by ebook reading where, like, sometimes, or with synthesizers, as you mentioned way at the start of this, Debbie, where they don't pronounce things properly, right? With an actual human narrator, you get the real feel, the accents, the dialect, the pacing, and just like the overall theatrics of what it's supposed to be like having read this book aloud.
Exactly. The other thing I find too, sometimes I'll get narrators that have a heavy accent, and I find at the beginning it takes a little bit of effort to get used to it. Like, especially if you have somebody who's got a really thick, there's a lot of British narrators, and a lot of them are amazing. But at the beginning, sometimes you really have to listen to get used to their accent, get used to their intonations. So it's kind of neat, right? But you're right with the synthetic, sometimes voiceover, for example, will pronounce live as live or read as read, right? Yeah. I don't know if a synthetic audiobook does that. I've never listened to one, but it takes time and effort. And if it takes too much time and too much effort, I can't get into the book. If I have to spend too much time really listening to the narrator's accent or trying to understand what he or she is saying or what the system is saying, I'm going to get bored very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the longest books I've read in my entire life. No, I didn't used to read much actually when I was younger. So really, in the past 10 years, one of the longest books I've listened to or read was Gone with the Wind. And this book is just so enormously long. For anyone who's made it through either the book or the movie knows how long it is. But I read it in synthetic audio, and it wasn't synthetic audio in the form of an audiobook, Debbie. It was an ebook that I had read with a screen reader when I had an Android phone. And I'm
Yikes.
telling you that, it was a brutal experience. But I can't believe I came out of it actually loving that book. Okay, I loved it. I read part 2 of it. It was wonderful. And then I went back later on after I got Audible and actually listened to it using a very beautiful performance and narration. But I couldn't believe how much I got through with the apostrophes and with the accents and with the way that people speak back in the early 1900s. And it was terrible. Like it was, a lot of it I had to just decode, right? Because I had no idea what this could actually mean until I heard the human narrated version. So totally understand what that could feel like.
Wow, good for you. I don't know that I could do that, especially Gone with the Wind. That's
I know.
Giant book.
It's a never-ending book. Yeah. But, later on with the human narrated version, I was still learning things because I was like, oh, that's how that's said, not what I thought it was supposed to be. Okay, cool. And earlier on you mentioned, even if it takes you 6 months, which in my head I was like, 6 months, would you finish, go through and finish the book? Do you binge a lot of books or do you take your time?
It depends. I go through phases where I read, and then I go through a phase where I may not read for like 2 weeks. And then I go through other phases
Right.
where it's like, I really want to read. I really want to read. I really want to read. Like, we'll be watching something on Netflix, my partner and I'll be like, let's watch one episode because I really want to read. Right. And other times I'll be
Yeah.
like, it's lunchtime. I'm going to put in my earbuds and read. Other times I can go for 2 weeks and not even pick up a book. Sometimes
Right.
I have 2 books on the go. I just finished one now and I was listening to 2 at the same time. And sometimes I have a third. So sometimes I'll have like, one print book going and then I'll have like 2 audiobooks going.
Yeah, totally. I mean, these days it's very easy to have a lot of audiobooks going. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a narrowed down habit. I like you go through the phases of audiobook, and then, that was a lot of audiobooks. Netflix, then come back.
Yeah, it's hard to find an even balance.
Exactly. Or, the mess is the balance, maybe. Debbie, so awesome talking to you. Thank you so much for going through the scale with us. It's a work in progress experiment, whatever you want to call it, but it was really,
Oh my
really
goodness,
fun.
that was fun.
Yeah, and it was fun getting to know you as an audiobook listener, and I'm sure you'll be back on the show, so we'll talk more. Before we go, give us your recommendation.
Stay by Catherine Ryan Hyde. I just finished it. It was a bit of a heart-wrenching story, but it's about friendship, and it was set in 1969, so there is a little bit of touching on people returning from Vietnam. But it was just the narrator was amazing. The story was amazing. I loved it. If you are looking for something sweet, there is some sad parts. It does talk a little bit about mental health and, again, people coming back from the war and, a little bit of dysfunctional families, but it's just a beautiful story. So Stay by Catherine Ryan Hyde.
Appreciate the recommendation so much, Debbie. We have it up as well on the podcast description for anyone who's looking for the title/author. Thank you so much, Deb. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you so much.
You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review. Thanks for joining us this week. Happy Saturday, if you happen to be listening on a Saturday, of course. Nasreen and I will be back next week, but until then, happy audiobook listening.
This was an AMI podcast. For more accessible media, visit ami.ca.